Hey, GLP-1 plus size community. Before we jump into the podcast, please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on whatever audio platform you're listening to the podcast on. Share your story and how the podcast has helped you. This will help us get referred up in the audio platform so that we can reach more people that need our help, our support, and guidance from our doctors. Help us get loud and change things.
Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault. You want to know a hack to get insurance to cover your GLP-1 prescriptions? Here's the truth. Most people get denied the first time that they try, and insurance companies are betting that you're just going to give up. But you do have rights, and you can appeal not just once, but multiple times. The problem is the process is confusing and it's time consuming, and a lot of providers just don't have the bandwidth to be able to fight through it with you. So that's why I partnered with Claimable. It's an easy-to-use tool that helps you build expert-backed appeals proven to work. So don't give up on your shot at coverage. Exhaust your appeals. Go to getclaimable.com/plussides to learn more and use code PLUSSIDES with a Z to save.
Want the fastest working GLP-1? For half the price, Ro now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with the formula from Eli Lilly that hits not one, but 2 hormones to curb hunger and nausea. Weight loss faster, confidence higher, price cheaper. See if you qualify at ro.co/TV.
Absolutely. Well, now that we've cured hepatitis C, fatty liver is going to be the next greatest reason why people need liver transplants in the next 5 to 10 years here. And so having drugs, like they're looking at semaglutide and just seeing how effective it is. They're looking at tirzepatide. Basically, all of these drugs that help with weight loss are essentially probably going to get a study or two that looks at its effects on the liver to see who is the better one in that sort. And hopefully they start getting indications, and then insurance companies maybe will then pick them up and actually cover them.
We'll keep hope alive.
Let's keep it alive for sure. So Lori was telling us on her journey that she didn't struggle with weight until basically she had really 2 catastrophic losses, right, in her life. And then her body changed and wasn't responding in the same way that it did before. I think it would be really cool to understand why that happens when we age, or why that happens maybe when we go through stress.
Totally. So the interesting thing about the aging piece of it is that, a lot of people will say your metabolism slows down with age. And that's kind of true, but your metabolic rate doesn't really slow until after the age of 60. And then even then, it only slows about 0.7% year after year. What tends to happen as we age is, one, we tend to move a lot less. So we go from, our 20s, going out on the weekend, dancing, partying, all that sort of stuff. And then you get into your 30s and you start to, move up the corporate ladder in different jobs. So those usually involve becoming more and more sedentary, longer work hours, that sort of thing. You're also having kids, you're more exhausted, more tired. And then for women, it starts the wonderful next life transition. And I think Kat alluded to, that
Hmm.
HRT and that sort of
Yep.
thing. So then we have that hormonal piece that's going on. And so all of these lifestyle and other factors kind of stack and stack and stack. And also, as we start getting older, yeah, unfortunately, people in our lives start passing away or other events and whatnot start happening. And so when big life events like that occur,
Yeah.
depending on how much of an effect they have on us, that could lead to depression, anxiety, and put you in a really bad spot. And it might be habits that you've had in place already, but maybe we're able to mitigate and manage and such like that. But suddenly, when you get this huge stressor on, well, you're going to default to what's easy, and it's going to be those hyper palatable, quick, easy
Yeah.
foods that make you feel a little bit better in the moment, but ultimately cause you to pack on the weight and kind of perpetuate and further feed into that cycle. You then move less, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
And yeah, weight then becomes a real big problem for you.
Yeah. I think like so what Lori was talking about too, like I think that's what my mom had. She always sort of struggled, I would say, with 20 pounds, right?
Mhm.
Nothing major. She definitely had food noise the whole time, where that we talk about it all the time. She's like, I've always had this, you know. And
Totally.
but she's on a GLP-1 now, but my dad got cancer and then my sister got cancer like really within like a couple years of each other. It was awful, awful, awful. And she was like, the only thing that makes me happy is food. I can't find, and she's actually incredibly, even now, she just turned 70, athletic and
Mhm.
and vivacious and just always out doing something. Like she's always on the go. Like she's just that kind of person. And even with her, and now she takes her tirzepatide and she's like, I will do it as long as I can. Like, and it's hard for her because much like with Lori, she does compound because it's on Medicare, right? And that's a problem. It's like my dad struggled with weight probably, I would say, like started maybe in his like mid 30s or like early 40s, but
Yep.
never did before that. Was always a small human and active and stuff. And then he eventually started dealing with obesity, and of course nobody treated it. He just kind of went on crash diets. Not and we all That's what we all did, right?
Yeah.
And just like what Lori was talking about. But now he has diabetes, he's in kidney failure, he's on Medicare, and he's on all the things. He's got a heart valve issue, like it got cancer, like it's, you know what I mean? Like it all helps me, like, I mean, think like, well, you want people to get on these sooner, right? To try to avoid those things. And just like Laura was saying, like seeing it, in her, like the was a calcium buildup, right, Lori, in your heart. Like I
Mhm.
think that that's so sobering for so many people. And I think we know that there's like this barrier to entry in terms of the price of the medication, right? I think
Uh-huh.
there's also a barrier to entry in terms of the kind of care that you get while you're on them, and then also understanding how to like manage side effects. So really wanted to talk a little bit about sort of when it comes to these medicines, a lot of people stop taking them because that sort of quality of care is not available, usually because of the price, right? Or where they're getting their medicine or how that works, what country they're in, right?
Totally.
And I think that there's like those common side effects, but I would love to know, like, how do you counsel, right, patients, like in terms of how to manage them, like things that you could do.
Totally. So I mean, the biggest thing, always from like a lifestyle perspective, whenever we're starting these medications, my big things are a just kind of bringing the awareness, like nausea, heartburn, constipation, diarrhea. Those are kind of the four big ones that you're going to get plus or minus some of those. Like pretty much everybody in the study had some amount of it. I find men get it a lot less. Women, pretty much every single female patient I've worked with, guaranteed a little bit of nausea, a little bit of constipation, what have you. Biggest things that we want to focus on is one, starting to adjust dietary patterns. So just smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day. Just kind of, if you have your usual portion that you're going to have, maybe it's got to be two breakfasts that you now have. Just splitting it up and just making it so you're not being loaded up, because food is not going to be going through your GI tract as quickly.
Mhm.
It's going to be looking at if you have any particular trigger foods. So if you know something in the past has caused you heartburn, stay very far away from it right now.
Yeah.
Like just leave it be, let it do its thing. If you can, reduce spicy foods, alcohol intake, all those sorts, kind of the main culprits of things like heartburn. And then really trying to reduce high fatty foods, even doing like possibly a low fat diet initially. And what we're trying to do with that is because fat, takes a longer time to digest, sits in your stomach for a bit longer, and
Mhm.
like really greasy foods, like if you were to go and
Mhm.
do, drive through and get deep fried food and that sort of thing, you are not going to have a good time. So
Nope.
really trying to reduce that down. But it's even like, if you're having olive oil or whatever like that and having a lot of that on your veggies and whatnot,
Mhm.
probably going to have to reduce that down a little bit too.
Mm.
So being mindful of those things. And then, yeah, the other big things are, not lying down right after eating. If you need to, trying to prop yourself up in bed if you're getting a little bit of regurgitation.
Mhm.
And then it really comes down to dose adjustment and tweaking. Now, up here in Canada, fortunately, with like the Mounjaro and zepbound pens, we have it's like the Ozempic pens where it's clickable and that sort of
Oh,
thing.
that's so good.
So we can tweak and adjust the dose like that.
Mm.
And so, yeah, so it might be starting out at, instead of 2.5, it's 1.25, or finding your dose that magically works,
Yeah.
or we stay at 2.5 for a really long time. There's a whole bunch of different strategies that we look at just in dosing, just to
Yeah.
help with the tolerance. And I find a lot of people who get bad side effects, or really any side effects with Ozempic, wegovy, generally, short of, I think, one patient at this point in time, has had like almost none or very few side effects with Mounjaro Zepbound. Like, it's vastly better tolerated. So that's a whole other strategy of just switching the medication and getting to one that is better tolerated, fewer side effects, all that wonderful stuff. And yeah, people ultimately do a lot better with it.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating.
You made a video debunking the cycling on GLP-1. I caught your YouTube on that, to help prevent the GLP receptor damage that's going around, right? Yeah, I guess people are saying like it's getting worn out. Could you go over this and bust any of the myths that are surrounding this for us?
Totally. So I find this one really interesting, and people have latched onto this like random mouse study that came out a couple years ago. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't have any mouse physiology in me at all. But we'll run with it.
Sure.
The other big thing is that when we look at other drugs, say stimulant-based medications like caffeine and that sort of thing, yeah, you can eventually develop a tolerance to those. But you're working in very different systems. If you overload your brain with dopamine, that is bad news bears. Whereas we're looking at satiety hormones and just entirely different regulation pathways. So first and foremost, there's no down regulation. We have plenty of studies that go many, many years out that show GLP-1s still binding. In fact, when people lose weight, there's actually some data that you may actually upregulate some of your GLP-1 receptors, so you have more of them present, and they could become more active, more sensitive, all that wonderful stuff. So definitely none of that going on. A lot of people will say that, well, the medication stops working. I went off of it and then went back on, and I started losing weight again, or what have you. And the medication never stops working. The way that I talk about, the food noise coming back, or
Mhm.
you reaching a plateau, what you're dealing with is just metabolic adaptations. It's what your body is designed to do. 30,000 years ago, when we would go
Mhm.
between our woolly mammoths or whatever we got down,
Mm.
our body had to adapt, and it did things like increase appetite, cravings, and hunger when it was a blizzard and freezing cold out. It would somewhat decrease our metabolic rate in order to preserve what fat we had. And then it would get us to stop moving so much so that we didn't burn any unnecessary calories. We didn't just go for a walk along the Sunset Beach or anything just for shits and giggles.
Mhm.
We used our energy for a purpose.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea that when your body starts to lose weight, it starts to adapt. And it's kind of like the biology, it just keeps building and building and building and building. For every single kilo that you lose, it's been estimated that your appetite goes up by about 100 calories per day, and your metabolic rate decreases by about 30 to 40 calories per day.
Crazy.
So if you've lost 100 pounds, 100 times 100, like, you have ramped your appetite way up, and you've
Mhm.
decreased your metabolic rate quite significantly from where it was. So your body is going to need fewer calories just to run and operate, but you're also going to have massive cravings. And there's some times where we can pump all the drug into you in the world, but you have this biological system that was designed hundreds of thousands of years ago
Right.
against you, who's been on this planet for the 30, 40, 60 years that you've been here, whatever, but I'm sorry, biology is always going to win. And if it wants you to eat, it's going to find a way to get you to eat.
Yeah.
So the drug's still there. It'll manage it to a degree. And sometimes we can mitigate and manage things through lifestyle, like getting your protein up, building muscle mass, et cetera, et cetera. And it can start to buffer and mitigate those things, but not always, just depending on your genetics and how sensitive you are and what your body ultimately is putting out and saying,
Right.
like, no, I really want you to have a chocolate bar, and you're going to have that chocolate bar today.
For
Make
sure.
sure it's high quality.
100%.
You know?
Exactly.
No crappy dollar store chocolate, right? Yeah.
I have like, okay, so after like, we interview all these experts, right? All these weight management experts on here. And okay. So a lot of time, like when we're talking about like the food, this is a chemism. I'm always very clear of when I hear this from a professional versus a me thing. But what you just explained, I feel like has happened to me in different like forms, like as I've going through perimenopause. Don't get me started. It's awful. But like getting that under control and I don't even think that I don't even know if under control is a thing. I think it's under control for now because like you said, our body continues to adapt, right? Um, I feel like it's not like when I wanted to binge when I before the medicine, right? That I was like, "Oh, I can't wait to sit down and eat a whole bunch of Brussels sprouts and friggin' salmon and steak and just," you know what I mean? It wasn't like I wanted meat and vegetables. I wanted the things with the most calories and the most fat and the most, you know what I'm saying? Like that food noise, it's not just wanting to eat all the time, it's like the things that you want to eat. And when the food noise went away and I didn't want those things anymore, like I feel like when the food, I always know when the food noise is coming back, like especially like again, like as this adaptation is happening, because those will be the things that I'll want again.
Mhm.
Right? Like, and it's like I swear to, and I don't know why this sounds weird when I say it, because I don't know like what tense to say it in. My body and my brain knows that those ones are gonna get us enough in our body to survive the famine that's never coming. Right. And I
100%.
swear, like, I mean, like I would love for there to be some sort of studies or something, but it's I feel like that's why we don't want those foods anymore because that was like a symptom of the disease, right? Like and is that you think that's a real thing? It's my opinion. I don't know.
I mean,
It's
if
okay if
if
I'm
if
wrong.
your brain is ever given the choice, like medication or not, like choosing the apple over the apple pie,
Yeah.
brain is always going to say yes, apple pie. And from an evolutionary perspective, that makes sense because apple pie means you might live a couple extra days, whereas apple means
Right,
you could die tomorrow. But in
right.
saying all of that, we're looking at not just the biology and the evolutionary biology, but you're looking at the whole emotional piece of it and just the
Mhm.
even the relationship that you've had with food and this
Yeah.
probably to some degree just this draw of you've constantly wanted to crave the quote unquote more healthy and nutritious foods and
Definitely.
you've always had that drive and you've been shamed enough to say well you just need to eat some
Yeah.
broccoli and do x y and z
Yes.
that now you're kind of like well actually yeah that actually sounds like pretty good now I have the mental clarity to be like yeah, let's have some fucking broccoli. Like that
Yeah.
sounds like a good thing. And it's
Yes.
because that, it's been pre-programmed and put in there, whether good or not, but you're now drawn to that because you have the mental clarity and space to be able to be like, yeah, I do want to eat that. And
Yeah.
you're also getting the positive feedback that, hey, when I eat these foods, I tend to feel better. I tend to
Yeah.
have more energy. I
Mhm.
function better and I'm losing weight. So now that's stacking all the reward piece and things, and that's triggering cravings on that side of it. So
Yeah.
it's the whole complex interplay of like the emotional memory, internalized bias, all the crap that comes with it.
Oh, sure.
And yeah, kind of just turned on and just switched in the right direction of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's like what is so like life changing about these medicines for like someone like me who's struggled forever. Like I told a story when I was on Lori's show about my mom used to make spaghetti when I was little
Mhm.
And I remember fighting with myself at 8, 9 years old, like to get seconds and thirds, like bargaining with myself to keep myself from going and getting it. And knowing that I wasn't supposed to eat that much, that I was too young and too all this and, to eat that. And I didn't know that was food noise, but for sure that continued my entire life. Like, and I've always been like that. And now it is amazingly freeing to not have that be a thing. But this is where the choice comes in, right? Of the app, because you have it now. Like, and I think that sounds weird because it's like, I don't know how to describe it, but at least they're my choices. Like if I choose to have the apple pie, at
True.
least it was
Very true.
mine. Like at least it wasn't driven by a disease that I couldn't. And there's so many people
You
out.
gotta eat it. You gotta eat it,
Yeah,
right?
right? But there's so many people I think that don't understand it, that think that I'm trying to release accountability from the things that I've eaten and the way that my body has, become so diseased, right? There's so many people that need me to say like that, right? They want me to, but at the end of the day, it's just not true. At the end of the
Mhm.
day, it is biological, and but I think that when that is removed and you do have the space, right? Then you try to make the good decisions most of the time, right? And that's what
Totally.
I try to do. I try to do things like in moderation, but sometimes I'm going to have a coffee full of sugar and sometimes I'm going to have some apple pie. I think the difference is it's sometimes and it's not all of it, right? It's not the whole cake, it's not the whole
Mhm.
pie, it's not that, right? And that balance and that thing is key. But then it's like if you have, just like you said, have had that relationship with food emotionally, when it's gone, what do you do? And
Mhm.
I guess, like, that's sort of been my, like, journey is, what do I do? What do I replace it with? And, because you feel like, well, I've always solved with food because I was
Mhm.
hungry, right? Or because I always thought I was always hungry, or I've always solved with food because, I didn't feel good and I wanted to feel better, right? Or I did something great and I wanted to reward myself, right? Like Lori was talking about, like, with her story with, like, especially with, like, Christmas and her birthday, right? Like, we wanna celebrate. So much of
Right?
our
Social
lives and
gatherings, yeah.
social stuff centers around food and the emotional connection to it, right? So when I
Totally.
didn't have it, I didn't know what to do with myself. And I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. I had transfer addiction, and my transfer addiction was TikTok. And making content on TikTok and launching this podcast with Kat, and I was obsessed. I was convinced that we were going to, and we have kind of in a way, all of us together, right? Like solve this, right? That
Yeah.
we were going to make this movement and make this change. We were going to do it. And I can still see it. We are doing it and it's going to happen. These price, who pushes pharma this far, this fast in price? Nobody. No, it's us. We're the ones. And so I think, like, I believe that very deeply, but at some point I was like, "Oh, shit, I have a life and friends and all these other things," and I forgot about them because I poured everything into here. And then I'm trying to kind of figure out what to do with that. And I think that a lot of people go through, where do I put that? And since
Mhm.
you've been treating people with weight management for like a long time, so tell me, like, how do you coach people through that? Is it
Totally.
just go for a run? Like, what is it?
Absolutely. Well, and it's again, I find one of the most powerful things is just creating the expectations around it of kind of
Mhm.
when it comes up, it's like, oh, that's what, Dan was talking about, or oh, that was the thing. And suddenly it clicks and comes through. The it is always really tricky though, because depending on, yeah, what that food means to you, if we suddenly take that away,
Yeah.
well, that's suddenly like saying somebody uses cigarettes to cope with stress or whatever like that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're going to make it through, but it's going to be pretty bumpy and rough. And if we're not careful, which in some cases, like bariatric surgery, we see people turn to alcohol and go
Yeah.
that direction to get some kind of feeling and emotion. And so I mean, part of the journey, and I think honestly, every single human being needs to do a lot more of this, is kind of learning to recognize your emotions, feel your emotions, realize emotions and feelings are okay. They're going to suck sometimes, they're going to be great sometimes, and they're a part of life. The better that you can learn to just deal with them and to process them in an appropriate manner,
Yeah.
that you don't need to go to whatever in order to mitigate. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, we can do quite, we can make it through this and we don't need to turn to
Yeah.
food. And
Mm.
it can be looking at something that is more fulfilling. Like, you going on this journey is a great example of you found something that's more fulfilling, that rewarded you greater than what
Yes.
the food did. I would say if you have underlying ADHD and that sort of thing, we've got a couple of things that are
Hey,
running wild there.
yes, we do.
And so that can kind of become that, yeah, you dive into it and go into it. But, it might be going for a walk and just experiencing and being in nature. It's connecting with friends in your community. It's even
Yes.
taking up new hobbies. Like pickleball is like the latest and greatest thing that everybody and their dog is playing. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so it's finding the other outlets and things that are healthier for you in the long run of things.
Yeah. You want to know a hack to get insurance to cover your GLP-1 prescriptions? Here's the truth. Most people get denied the first time that they try, and insurance companies are betting that you're just going to give up. But you do have rights, and you can appeal not just once, but multiple times. The problem is the process is confusing and it's time consuming, and a lot of providers just don't have the bandwidth to be able to fight through it with you. So that's why I partnered with Claimable. It's an easy to use tool that helps you build expert backed appeals proven to work. So don't give up on your shot at coverage. Exhaust your appeals. Go to getclaimable.com/plus sides to learn more and use code plus sides with a Z to save.
Want the fastest working GLP-1? For half the price, Roe now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with the formula from Eli Lilly that hits not one, but 2 hormones to curb hunger and nausea. Weight loss faster, confidence higher, price cheaper. See if you qualify at ro.co/TV.
And then it's also sometimes just recognizing if you really want to have the chocolate, you can have the chocolate. Like there's nothing wrong
Mhm.
with chocolate. Chocolate's not inherently bad. It's when we eat 6 chocolate bars in a row and do it
Agreed.
day after day after day, right? And
For sure.
sometimes
Mhm.
food makes us feel better, and that's
Yeah.
okay. You're allowed to eat it. It's kind of recognizing that I feel like a turd. Today's a chocolate day. I'm gonna have some chocolate,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's a
right?
great quote. I think we should
Oh.
save that. Today I
Today I
feel
feel
like
like
a
a turd.
turd.
I'll have some chocolate.
100%.
That's something gonna make you a meme.
Yeah,
Yeah,
love it.
today I feel like a turd. I like that.
Love it.
But yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot of processing just of the emotional piece of it and learning to sit with those things and then
Yeah.
finding the other things that did bring you a lot of joy and happiness. And I tell a lot of people and patients, go back to your childhood. What was the things that you used to love doing? Like
Yeah.
my big thing, I've gotten huge into Legos again because I freaking loved Legos. And I'm like, they have all these adult Legos. I don't need to be,
Mhm.
just over 3 to
We're
play
not
with
being
them.
Lego
Like
shamed. No.
100%.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
like my newest thing that I go and play with Lego, and it's like you get to be a kid again. So
Yeah, I love
what
that.
are the hobbies and things that always lit you up? You know what they are, but as an adult, because of time, shaming, whatever, you've had to
Yeah.
push them away and that sort of thing. And so find your outlets, find the things that actually bring you joy and happiness, and it's going to be those things that keep you going.
Yeah, I love that. What was it for you, Lori? Like, what did you start running again?
No, but I always worked out a lot, and um, I actually started an part of my workout now I do in a sauna, and then I go next door and do my weight training.
Oh my
So like,
gosh. What a
I
badass you
yeah,
are.
gosh.
but
Yeah,
You
you're
always make
that's
me
like
wanna feel like I can't
my me
breathe.
time. Yeah, I put my headphones on
I get
and
it.
the
Yeah,
whole tune the whole world out, and it's just me.
yeah, I get it.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Lately, I've been doing like, just exercising every day, which is bizarre,
I'm
absolutely
still
bizarre.
like, it's amazing. I
It's
love
been
it.
months now. Like, yeah, it's crazy. I
I
had
didn't do it.
to
It's not
do
my
it. Like,
fault. It just Kim
I
did it.
know. I always thought you were nuts, Kat.
I know,
Like,
but Kim did it. I didn't do it. I
but
didn't do
you're
it.
not. I
This
was
is
the
all
crazy one.
Kim.
I'm telling you.
All
But
Kim. It's
and it's
amazing.
funny because, like, with Kat, her husband, like, whenever she gets anxious, will go walk it off. Make her
Yeah,
leave
my
and go
husband will
walk
tell me to go walk it
because he
off.
knows, like, that she needs to go, like, do that. So sometimes I'll message her and I'm all anxious. She's like, "You need to go for a walk. Like, you need to do that." And she's right. I do it, and I'm like, "I swear, it is saving my life." It is the mental piece of exercise is more than I ever imagined. But again, in a diseased body, I couldn't feel it. It just hurt. right? But then when I got in a less diseased body, or like, however you want to look at it, I don't even know, right? Remission, I don't know, whatever it is. I was able to, I think, feel the things other people could feel, endorphins and all those things. I didn't have that before. It just hurt. So it wasn't motivating to do anything that was very, I would say extreme at all. But the strength training piece and feeling strong again, and just feeling strong has been great in general. And I have found that I am way less concerned about the scale moving and more concerned about, like, not even like what I can lift, but just being able to move my body and do different things. I'm like, what else can I do? What else can I do? And that
Totally.
is so cool as an adult to think that way. Like, what else is
Mhm.
possible? Because I feel like at some point we get to adults where we don't really think that way anymore, you know? So this has been like a whole big journey, but I think it's incredible. And if anything, like the more I learn about it and the more I experience, I think, God, everybody deserves this. You know what I mean? Everybody deserves to have access and quality care to learn these things, hopefully sooner than I did, because I learned it way
Yeah,
late.
we
But
will. We will.
yeah, we'll get
They will. I said
we'll
they
get
will.
there.
We
We're
will.
just gonna keep pushing this boulder over the hill. We'll get there together.
Totally. Absolutely.
And play and go, rediscover Legos.
Yeah, hell
That's
yeah.
really cool. That sounds fun.
That does sound fun.
Right?
It
Yeah.
does.
So much fun. Love every minute of it. And
Yeah.
it's something that you just can get engrossed in. You don't think about the world. You don't think about
Yeah.
whatever you got going on. It's just me and the Legos. It's
Yeah.
me in the gym.
And
It's
it's something
whatever.
physical that's not digital too. I think that's another piece of it. Like our brain was not meant to
Okay.
do all of these things
Yeah.
that we do right now. Like, you know what I mean? It's too much. It's too much. I think like Kat sent me this video that Gary Vee did where he was like, I think we've over digitalized everything. And so now we're going to have way more in-person things. Like he was saying that he thinks that people are going to like have businesses where they just walk with you. They're just your friend and they just walk with you and they go out
Yeah,
and spend time with you, and like, and that's a business for them. And I was like, I think I can totally see that, right? Especially with like layoffs and all these things happening, people getting creative with those, and being able to build like more relationships in persons. I think that is going to be fascinating to see. You know,
100%.
yeah.
That
Absolutely.
happen. We have to get together. People will create. Makes me. I'm focusing on this Lego thing because I have a friend who did. I am not huge into Harry Potter, but I know enough, and she did the entire. It's a very expensive Lego kit, but she
Yeah,
spent like
they're
2 weeks,
all
and it was
expensive.
amazing. All in Legos, but anyway,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Legos are brilliant. Like honestly, if you think about it, they're little plastic things you hook together. Like they
But
laugh
you
into the
create it
bank.
into something so amazing, right? And
Yes, but
that's
they're
the
laughing
reward.
to the bank, like, because it's
Yeah.
just so fun to sit there and just build stuff. You know what I mean? I love it. Go ahead, Kat. Sorry.
Mhm. Oh, you're fine. So let's discuss maintenance. What are some of the different scenarios that you've seen, and what you utilize to maintain weight loss?
Okay. So I guess, I mean, the main one that a lot of people and what I kind of use in my practice in particular is very much what Lori is experiencing is,
Mm.
you go on the medication, you do really well, and even maybe even like not so well. Like I've had, you know, again, as a quick aside with like the hyper responder thing, like some people, I don't think they think hyper responders is someone who loses weight very rapidly, but yet I've had patients lose hundreds of pounds over, 3 years, and it's like
Yeah,
that's a hyper responder, and they're on very
yeah,
low dose of the medication. So
crazy.
it's just kind of keeping that all in mind. But anyways, so you've done well, you've got to the weight, or maybe you're close to it, or whatever like that, and you're like, you know what, I just don't want to lose any more weight. So I mean, there's no wrong, or right way to go about it. Usually, I'm kind of like, well, if this drug at this dose, say Mounjaro at 10 milligrams, is working for you, and you're able to eat enough protein, you're lifting weights, getting stronger, you feel like your energy levels are great, you don't feel like you're getting side effects or anything like that, sweet. Then let's just keep you on this dose, and you just head on your way. Other people, it might be like, okay, I really want to focus on weight training and getting my protein up, but 10 milligrams is just way too much. So yeah, we back the dose down. We try out 7.5, see how they do there. Are they able to get more protein in? All that sort of stuff. Cool. Maybe they're doing better. Maybe we want to try backing it off more. We go to 5, and just like Lori, okay, yeah, we got a bit of food noise, so we go back to 7.5, or it's like 6, or whatever your magical middle dose is. But it's finding the right balance so that you can consume the necessary nutrients that you need to have your body run as optimally as possible. And one of my big things with all my patients is activity wise, we just start with wherever you're at, but it is going to be a push to trying to do more resistance based exercise to build the muscle mass and that sort of thing. Even if it's walking with a weighted vest, which suddenly has blown up and become popular, doing something like that where you're putting your body under load. Very, very important. And then it's getting the protein, whole nutrients, fiber, all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of a cool phase because it's like, you're not focused on the number on the scale. It's like, oh, like, well, can I try this and optimize this piece and see how this feels? Or if I try eating white rice instead of brown rice, how does that feel? And different things like that. You get to kind of play around and go about it and just see what are kind of the ways that you can further help yourself to feel better and better and better. Because a lot of people don't quite realize that when it comes to weight loss, if we look at weight loss purely alone, at about 15 to 20% loss from baseline, you're going to get pretty much topped out on all of the health benefits. Like you're going to get 80, 85% of your bang for your buck. Further weight loss, like you're just squeezing out little by little by little.
Yeah.
It's going to be activity, dietary changes, sleep, stress, all of that. That's then going to push you way, way further down that road and give you much, much better health outcomes in the long term.
Yeah.
So it's along the way, we want to be optimizing all that, but it's really dialing those things in and just seeing how good you can feel because you've never kind of been in this place in your life. And what does that look like for you? So those are kind of some of the big foundational principles. I have had a couple of patients who have managed to come off the medications. It's really variable. What I've found is the people who are able to come off are generally those that didn't really have too much food noise to begin with. It might have been more of a, kind of going through perimenopause, menopause, gained a lot of weight there, and they were able to come off, but they've also now, they're lifting weights 4 times a week, doing some kind of activity the other days of the week. They're eating a ton of protein, like they've done a full 180 on their entire life, and they're able to kind of keep things dialed in and that sort. And thus far, my one patient, she's been able to keep the weight off for 2 years now and been quite successful, very happy. Life is all good. But it was like a progression to get there. And it was a very slow, like we went from 7.5 to 5 to 2.5 and so on down on the dose and that sort, and finally got her off. And then it's just continuing to touch base with her various support systems, me included. We touch base a couple times a year and just making sure that questions, concerns, anything's coming up, again, we're further optimizing and that sort. So how you go about it is going to depend on you. What I recommend for most people, though, is most people aren't going to be able to come off the medications, or at least not be able to come off the medications without a fuck ton of work.
Yeah.
The way I talk about the meds is they're kind of like AC. You don't need AC to survive, but AC makes life a little bit better. And if you don't,
we're in the
right?
South. Yeah.
That's with hot flashes, right?
100%. So you could survive without it,
You could.
but are you going to enjoy life, and are the people around you going to enjoy you is the next question.
Yep.
So
Comes that third feeling again, right? So yeah.
absolutely. So if you can use something that has been proven to be safe and effective, we've got 20 plus years of experience with these molecules, and there's no long-term effects. It's not going to damage your body. It's not going to ruin your GLP-1 receptors. And if it just takes that whole thinking about food and obsessing over food and counting calories and that sort, and just makes it so much easier so that you can focus on what actually matters in life, why the hell wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Agreed.
I think that's like where a lot of people are. I've seen some people be like there was one girl in our community that even started before me, I think. And she recently was like, I started taking Vyvanse, and I lost like 10 more pounds, and I've been on like the low dose of GLPs, and I'm going to try to get off it and just do Vyvanse and see how that goes, to see if that works for her. But she's had obesity all of her life too. So I think like, she's like, look, if I do it and it doesn't work, then I'll just go back on, right? Like my insurance will cover it. I've got, hopefully, be able to get it approved and all those things. And I think that's something to think about. Like even with my mom. So like my mom was like, she loved Wellbutrin, but it made her blood pressure go up. But she was like, I thought it was great. Like I think that would be fantastic for me. But she can't take that because she has like these sort of other effects. And I think that some people have that with like Topamax and like so
Yeah.
a lot of that or with the stimulants, like may have issues with anxiety and stuff. And I think that's a lot of the things that we have, it seems like they work almost better with GLP-1s, like adding them in,
Mhm.
with a GLP-1, because I just like you said, there is an adaptation. Like at some point it starts to come and I don't even know if I would say like the food noise comes back. I mean, it does. It's more like a dull roar. Everybody's different, right? But I've had some people be like, it is full on back. I've had some people tell me that they'll have weeks sometimes, right? Where they're like, it's like I took nothing.
Mhm.
Right. And I always tell them, even though I'm not a doctor, I'm like, look, I'm not a doctor, but chill the fuck out. Like, it's just like your body's gonna fight you. Like, that's why I keep trying to tell you guys, like, I'm telling you, like, these experts are telling me this is biology. We know it now. It's biology. You control what you can. And
Mhm.
that being said, I'll tell you, I still have to tell myself the same things. And I'll tell you too, even though I have clinicians that I trust very much take care of my health, I still go to my community with everything first. So that's even someone is like with Kat and I interviewing all these experts every week, like
Hmm.
still there isn't a level of trust where we go to them first. Like they're not first line. And I don't know if it's like I feel like I'm bothering them or if I feel like I don't know, like, but I'd rather ask my friends that are going through the same thing that understand it. And there's like a level of empathy there that a clinician may not have. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Although I do like a clinician that has a obesity that's and like understands it and takes the meds. That's like a different thing, you know? I haven't found
Totally.
it though, but yeah, anyway, I think I had a question there somewhere. Oh, I was gonna ask you. So maintenance. So maintenance, squirrel. So for maintenance, can people get to a level of maintenance like where maybe they are doing both? Right. That was what I was gonna ask about that one. And if so, like what have you seen? Have people been successful doing that, like on a low dose of that and Contrave or something like that?
So, I mean, not so much like a low dose on either one. And I guess to kind of go back to your one friend example there, where she got on the Vyvanse, lost 10 more pounds, and like all this other stuff has kind of happened.
Yeah.
I have found if it depends on kind of like what the underpinning driver was in some respects, and if it's like very uncontrolled ADHD, that's been what's been driving you, and that's what's caused you to binge and overeat because you don't think about food all day long. You
Mhm.
don't have the executive capacity to plan and organize and have meals prepped, and your life is in chaos, and you've got 16 projects all on the go at once. Then, yeah, if we suddenly treat the ADHD, I've seen some people who are just like, this is exactly what I need. Like, yeah, I could take the GLP-1 and help me, but
Yeah.
this is my main issue that I needed to treat and manage.
Mhm.
And suddenly the weight just like melts off of them, and they're like, this is fantastic, great. This is all that I need because I've now treated this main underlying aspect of things
Hmm.
here. I found people who do well on Contrave and that sort, they also tend to have more of an ADHD pattern, and maybe they can't tolerate the stimulants, or Wellbutrin is just the hot ticket for them. There's also some people that I've had who have had like underlying depression and anxiety, and then Contrave is either a great adjunct because it's going to treat more of that,
Mhm.
or again, we treat the underpinning problem and issue, and suddenly they're good to go. So, not so much that I see kind of like low doses of both. It's been more, yeah, we treat the specific underlying thing. I've
Mhm.
had some people where, yeah, they've done really well on a GLP-1 and then we'll stack a medication on top, like Contrave and that sort,
Mhm.
and have great success on that piece of it. Here in Canada, one that I will sometimes use, I will get people down or do relatively well on a GLP-1, or maybe cost is an issue or whatever, and then I'll add on topiramate alone at a lower dose.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Topiramate works in a slightly different area of the brain,
Mhm.
has a bit more of like an immuting effect on the food noise and that sort. And the two together, low dose Mounjaro and topiramate, work like a hot damn. And they're like, this is great. It's fantastic. We got them at a low enough dose that they're not getting negative side effects with topiramate and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many different options and ideas and that sort. And I
Good
think,
that that exists, though. I don't know if people know that. I feel like people think this is it, So I think it's so good to know that
Yeah.
there's these other things that you can tweak, friends. Like, I mean, I have people message me all the time. They're like, "I'm at the top. I don't know what to do. There's nowhere else to go. There's no," and again, they come to us first, right, before talking to their clinician. And I think, like, it's important to know that you could do both, or you could do neither, or you could try this, or you could try that. Like, the fact that we have these options is huge. you know? And
Totally.
it's not just like, oh, we have to wait necessarily like like your wait is until retatrutide comes out or one of these pills comes out. Like hopefully that's the case. But I think that that does kind of go back into the fact that we think that obesity is treatable with just one thing, even though we know it's really complex, you know?
Absolutely. Well, it's
Yeah.
even like
Everything.
the new drugs that are coming out, like CagriSema. So
Yeah.
cagrilintide is a amylin analog, and what's really cool about that is that we have the GLP-1 that's really suppressing the physiological hunger down,
Mhm.
but then this amylin analog is going to act in a slightly different area of the brain that further suppresses appetite. And so for people who have really overt food noise,
Mhm.
this drug might be the key ticket for them, because we're now hitting two very distinct areas of the brain that are involved in appetite and that sort. And so in some cases, it's like, yes, we can stack some of these other agents on, and that might work for some people. For other people, we just haven't got the right pathway that is their obesity and
Wow.
what they
Yeah.
respond the best to. And
That's-
so
Yeah.
that could be the drug that is the key ticket for them. So
Yeah.
it's very exciting in that sense. And I mean, my background as a pharmacist, I mean, I know the drugs and the receptors very intimately and that sort of thing. So I can add things on. And even just when patients present with, this is my issue and what's kind of going on here, it's even like ADHD. Like we add adjuncts, like there's Intuviv or whatever like that. I can never pronounce the name, but other adjuncts just treat specific symptoms that are still present while
Yeah.
also having the stimulant. And it's like, yeah, you kind of figure out, the underlying pharmacology and brain chemistry,
Yeah.
and you can kind of pull on different levers and get a better result for somebody, because
Yeah.
again, we're treating their specific pathway versus just saying, nope, everybody's going to respond to a GLP-1. This is the pathway of it all, and this is directly what we're trying to do here. And it's like, no, that's not the case. Like there's what, 9-10 billion people on the planet now.
Yeah.
We're not going to have a one option fix all kind of thing, unfortunately.
No. I'm glad that we have options. Like if you think about it, it's a lot like with mental health, right? Like a lot of times you have to sort of find, like, I hate to say cocktail, but it's sort of like that, like what makes sense for your brain and like whatever it is. And I know there are lots of people that like say things like, why are we on all these meds? And even my dad's like, there's a pill for everything. I'm like, yeah, and you're on them. Now,
Yeah.
what was that part about?
Yeah.
Diabetes and cancer and get it. Be quiet. You be glad you alive. Hush. You're almost 70. Zip it. But but I mean, it's great that there is, because like I think that we've learned that there's a lot of complexities to the body and these different things, and I just want people to know like there's options. So I'm so thankful you went over that. The one thing I did want to ask you too, like sort of in this maintenance area, is that maintenance is going to look different for everyone on where you stop losing weight. I hear people say all the time, but I need to lose 50 more. I got to get out this 50 more. And they'll be like, I am dieting, I am exercising, but it just won't work. Like, and I think that again, I want to say to them, like BMI is bullshit, right? So sometimes like it really is about, I think from what I hear from you guys, right, is that it really is just about getting to the healthiest you can be, right? Like whatever that, not what everybody else says and not what, everybody wants to be in the overweight category. Sure. I dream about that. What's that like? There's never been a skinny Kim like in existence. So I don't know. What's that like? I don't know. I've like, if there was anything smaller than this, it's what I was in middle school. That's middle school Kim, right? So I can't even imagine like what that would be like. And sometimes I think about it and I see other people that are in these like small bodies and I'm like, what's that like? But at the end of the day, I actually don't care. What I care about is that I can move my body through the world, that I'm mentally healthy, physically healthy, my numbers are good, and then I can live a rich, full life in the way that I want to, and I think that that's a big mind shift, with that. So like this whole idea of maintenance, I don't know if it's like you said necessarily that, because like if you think, like you said, they cap out, like you can only go so far. And even with diet and exercise, you still can only go so far, I think for some people. And so I think like going through that, I can imagine that you've been doing this a long time, that you have had people come to you and say that, like, I
Totally.
need 30 more, I need 50 more. How do I do it? Help me get there. What do you say to them?
Well, I tell every single one of my patients that I can coach you and train you to be like bodybuilder, lean on stage, skinny. Like I can get you to single digit body fat, but you're gonna fucking hate me to do that, because you are gonna be
Agree.
so
Yeah.
it is
I
like,
get it.
What would that be, Dr. Dan?
like I've done it
Ultimate
before.
feeling of a turd, the ultimate, right?
Exactly.
Yep,
Like
idiot.
I've I've personally competed in a bodybuilding show, and I've never felt, well, I've never looked quote unquote so good, like model magazine ready, but felt so utterly shitty at the exact same time. And
Sure.
so it's like, what are you willing to sacrifice to get there? And I can tell you, nobody, even bodybuilders, when they get to that stupid low body fat, they
Yeah.
do not enjoy it. They do it for a day, do the show, and then they go and they gain weight back and they train and blah 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 blah, and they
Yeah.
repeat the cycle all over again.
Oof.
So I can help people to get there, but it's, yeah, what is the cost trade-off? And I always get down and ask people, what is this extra 30 pounds going to do for you? Like, are you going to be richer suddenly? Are you going to be a different person? Are you limited in some kind of way that having 30 pounds less, that life is going to open up and you can go do X, Y, and Z? If the answer is no, and it's always no to all those things, then why? And it always comes back to this number that was imprinted on them, whether it was because of the BMI or it was someone said that they needed to be there or a doctor said you need to reach this point or whatever.
Mhm.
But it's some kind of external piece and factor that's not for them ultimately. And the problem is that when it's not for you, it's going to fail every single time.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people tend to fail on weight loss diets, because they do it for the external pieces of it. And
Yeah.
so you going on that journey, you might lose it, but you're going to gain it back eventually. So it's trying to put things into perspective, help them understand what actually is it that we're striving for. If I'm healthy, I feel good,
Mhm.
I'm living and doing everything that I want to do in my life, cool. What more is there? And I've
Yeah.
heard some people say, like, well, I won't be biased and discriminated against. Okay, fair. There's
Yeah.
still a lot of shitty people out there,
Totally. Yeah.
but you're still doing that for an external reason when that is someone else's fucking problem and
Totally.
issue that you're not going to be able to change anyways, because they're just going to move the goalpost and say you're not good enough in some other kind of way. And so it's more, you need to kind of look at yourself and be like, what makes me happy, not what makes other people happy.
Yeah. That's the coolest part of the journey, I think, is to be able to be like, who do I want to be? What do I want?
Right.
And being able to do things to get yourself there, like whatever that is. And I think that's the neatest thing. And everybody deserves it, you know? Everybody deserves it. So we will keep fighting for it. This has been such a lovely conversation. Thank you both for joining us. Thank you so much, Lori, for
Thank you.
being so open and sharing your story for others to hear and relate with. And thank you,
Mhm.
Dr. Dan, for helping us understand how this works, why this works,
Great.
and what to do next. Because I think that, like, as I learned on this journey, and Kat and I were like learning, damn, this isn't about weight loss at all, right? Like, it's about health gain. And as we started learning, we were like, we need to make a community and a place where people can come, no matter where they are in their journey, whether they're in the weight loss mode or they're in the regain mode or they're in the perimenopause mode. If you have metabolic disease, this is a place you can always come and hang out with us and learn and not feel alone, because it's not your fault. It's biology. And
Yes, indeed.
we're just so glad to have you guys here. Thank you so much for watching
Right.
the show. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Please comment, like,
Yeah.
share all the things in the land, reviews. Huzzah! Okay. And we love you, and we will see you next week. Hasta la pasta. Oh, wait,
Don't forget.
we got to do your plugs. Dr. Dan, Lori, we need your plugs for your shows. Put that in first. Okay. Dr. Dan, where can people find you?
People can find me, my handle at the official Dr. Dan. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And then my community, online community that I work with people in is Dr. Dan's Empowerment Hub.
Awesome. Dr. Dan, that's
Love
like a
it.
website. Awesome. Send me all that so I can put it. I'll put it in the show notes. Dr. Dan's going to send it to me, so I have it all. Lori,
Totally.
plug your show. Tell us people we can find you.
YouTube, GLP-1 Journey in Review. My social media is attached to that. And that's where you find me.
Awesome. And you know where to find me,
Definitely.
Kat, because you've been here.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks so
no.
much, guys. Sorry that I forgot. I was like, damn, I had to run my damn mouth. I got to get these people. I feel so bad about it. Thanks so much. It always goes an hour and a half because we always have such a nice conversation. Thank you so much,
It was
guys.
great.
We'll see you next week. Close out again. Hasta la pasta.
Hasta la pasta.
Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you.
You want to know a hack to get insurance to cover your GLP-1 prescriptions? Here's the truth. Most people get denied the first time that they try, and insurance companies are betting that you're just going to give up. But You do have rights and you can appeal, not just once, but multiple times. The problem is the process is confusing and it's time consuming. And a lot of providers just don't have the bandwidth to be able to fight through it with you. So that's why I partnered with Claimable. It's an easy to use tool that helps you build expert backed appeals proven to work. So don't give up on your shot at coverage. Exhaust your appeals. Go to getclaimable.com/plussides to learn more and use code PLUSSIDES with a Z to save.
Want the fastest working GLP-1? For half the price, Ro now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with the formula from Eli Lilly that hits not one, but 2 hormones to curb hunger and nausea. Weight loss faster, confidence higher, price cheaper. See if you qualify at ro.co/TV.